Right, so welcome to this session, Software Carpentry in the Community. I'm Samantha Ahern. My official job title is Senior Digital Research Trainer. At UCL, I work with the Centre for Advanced Research Computing, but I'm here in my carpenter capacity where I'm co-chair of the Lesson Programmes Governance Committee for Software Carpentry. I'm going to explain what that means in a minute, what that means to you, and I really need to be mindful of that mic. Fabulous. So, the structure. I'm going to talk a little bit about carpentry and where it fits in carpentries. We're going to discuss some governance changes. So there were some changes last year. Some of us really weren't happy, quite upset and had some difficult conversations last year. Then we're going to do World Cafe. And then you're going to feed back. Okay, so when you self-organise into groups, think about who's going to have to speak into the roaming mic and summarise what's on your big sheets of paper. Humbug. So we're going to think about the current curricula, we're going to think about governance, and we're going to think about direction of travel. And that's kind of the things that we as a committee want to engage the community with very much. And obviously, if I go off-piste, Toby's here, and, you know, you're effectively my boss in a carpentry's context.
No, it's the other way around, what you're about to explain.
Right, so software carpentry. It is one of three carpentries: data carpentry, library carpentry, and software carpentry. Some of you will know it goes way back to 1995, and it develops and teaches workshops on fundamental programming skills needed to conduct research. So, with Greg, it kind of started in 95, and then it became software carpentry in 98. It has this long history. It is currently one lesson program. So data carpentry has multiple lesson programs because they specialise on domains. Library carpentry is kind of somewhere in between, but software carpentry is just the one lesson program. So it's always Unix shell, it's always Git on day one, and they're both half days, and then you've got a full day of either Python, R, or the optional lessons like MATLAB or something else. Now you can mix and match them. You can split them over half days, different days, but generally it's a 2-day format. But it is just the one core program with a bunch of optional things in it. So, how were we governed? Or how did this run until 2023? So, every lesson has maintainers. So these are people from the community that take responsibility for updating the content, both in terms of making sure that things run with the infrastructure changes, so the move over to Sandpaper and the workbench, but also the content. So if you want something changed, if you're not sure, you can submit an issue and they'll work on it. Then there's the Curriculum Advisory Committee that sits above that. So if there's something that's come in and the maintainers don't think they can make the call themselves, that traditionally went to the Curriculum Advisory Committee. And if there was a big change, that went to them. And then kind of spring, early summer last year, the Lesson Programmes Governance Committee came into effect. And the idea is that sits above or sat above the Curriculum Advisory Committee. Okay, and that kind of takes overall responsibility for working with the community on the programmes, communication advocacy, and where we're going with software carpentry in there. And then that's where we work closely with Toby. He's the carpentry's curriculum manager, to kind of do things. And we'd worked with the CAC to kind of get this working agreement. So there'd been a working agreement between the maintainers and the CAC, and then it was then how did the CAC work with the LPGC to kind of work with that governance. And then some of you will know that there were some big changes in the carpentries last year, and that we lost some key people and some key roles. And then the core team became a bit more spread, and some of the support wasn't there. So Toby was with us all the time, and now he's with us when he can be. So that's kind of changed what's available in terms of support. And a lot of people in the CAC didn't want to continue that role without kind of the core team support all the time. And they kind of drifted away, and it wasn't working as well as it could. It was a little bit broken. So we kind of decided that actually let's fold these two things together as one thing, and invite anyone on the CAC that wanted to be part of the LPGC. Okay, so we'd already spoke to them about how to work together, and they was actually, let's just fold it into one committee. So now we have the maintainers, and now the LPGC kind of takes that role above that in there. So we'd kind of answer any questions in there. And that's kind of what we want to talk about, that this is still maybe not as well known to the community that we exist and what we're here for, and kind of how this has all changed. So who are we? I'm one of them. So Valentina co-chairs with me. She's currently in Australia. Martino is our secretary, and he's currently based in Italy. Anajat is usually based in Bangladesh. So we are kind of spread. We had someone else for a while who was in America, and we kind of rotate our times to make sure that it works as a committee. So we try to find something that works for all of us, and at least 3 of us are present in a meeting if we can be. And we generally meet kind of monthly, and we talk about things. I don't think so. Yeah. So what do? So one of those things is strategy. So part of our role is monitoring the health of the lesson programme and designing strategies to maintain and improve it. So last year we did an audit of all the maintainers and all the programmes, how old issues were. We had an issue in the fact that for a while the MATLAB lesson didn't have a maintainer at all. So I personally audited the MATLAB content and knew that it still worked. I didn't have time to audit the Octave. And we had to make a call, like we didn't want to send it back to the incubator because we knew it would die. So we pestered Toby to make sure that when he was recruiting maintainers, we got someone from MATLAB. And we got 2, so I'm really happy. And we identified priorities for growing the community and reach of the lesson programme. The other thing that we do is advocacy. So we represent the lesson programme in local and professional networks, which is why I'm here. I'm reaching out to you as the RSE community, and I'll be talking to other research technical professionals as well about how we talk to you and more broadly. We work with the Executive Council and the core team to promote the interest of the lesson programme within the carpentries. So, yeah.
Do you only look after the software carpentry?
Yeah. Yeah. So we only look after, so the data carpentry and library carpentry have their own LPGC, but...
As far as I can tell, data carpentry doesn't really exist. It's supposed to, but crickets.
Yeah, so we're the most active of the 3, I think is fair-ish. Library is probably, yeah. I think we were quicker to get set up than the others. So we report on activities, objectives, and needs of the lesson programme to the Executive Council and core team. I'm here trying to engage you on topics and projects, and maintaining up-to-date information about the lesson programme. So things are kind of moving. So we've known for a long time that the Git lesson, that a lot of people weren't happy with Wolfman and Dracula. I personally love Wolfman and Dracula because it's one of those topics where I kind of totally get where Greg was going, that doing something quite silly with that kind of is how my brain works. But I also get that for most people, it's just like, why? Like, it doesn't resonate. So we're kind of shifting over to recipes. So it's going to be guacamole. But, you know, you can do anything you like. Yeah.
I ran the workshop in South Africa, and at the end of the day, the guy...
You might need to flick it on.
I ran the Git workshop in South Africa, and at the end of the day, someone told me he didn't know what guacamole was. So he lost the sort of trend of the lesson in the morning already. So we've created one with pea soup.
Yeah.
But someone did tell me he didn't know what pea soup was too, so I'm giving up.
Yeah. I've actually just adapted it for an epidemiology thing, and we're actually building a data dictionary because it makes sense for that context. So you can always personalize things, but at core level, we've gone with, actually, the recipes was the one that kind of got the most traction. Valentina hosted a conversation that was with the Australian New Zealand cohort, and this came through really strongly. There's things we want to do with Python, and I'm looking at Alex because I know I need to have a conversation with her about something, and we just haven't had the conversation. And we will be asking the community to do some work at Carpentry Connect in Heidelberg. I need to talk to Toby about what exactly we're going to do lesson-wise in Heidelberg at some point. But that will also be driven by some of the stuff we talk about today as well. So it really is your community and what you want from your lesson program, because it's not mine. it is yours. So, at this point, in true carpentry style, what questions do you have?
What is the available menu for some of the optional parts, like MATLAB, Octave, R?
So R is core.
R
There's
is
two
core?
versions of, there's an R lesson, there's 2 Python lessons, and there's 2 R and 2 Python, and they're core. They're subtly different in flavors. MATLAB, SQL, something else. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you, but if you Google software carpentry lessons,
I think that's it.
So there's a few, not a whole.
oh, it's
list.
like there's probably 4, and then there are Spanish translations of the lessons. So work was done to translate some of the lessons, but they're not in Workbench, and they probably need to be ported over.
Yeah, there have been plenty of other software carpentry lessons back when Greg in particular was first trying to figure out the best configuration for software carpentry. So there was like a version control with Mercurial lesson, for example, but it's archived. A lot of these lessons are archived, so they're not even like there as optional things, but not core. They're just like read-only at this point. If you find a situation where you want to teach version control with Mercurial, then you could still do it, but in my experience, those situations are rare.
And to Yanetta.
So with the existing Git lesson
Yeah.
and the Python lesson, we have slightly adapted them, but I believe, so I just like to know whether and how this has been considered or if not. So with Git, we have, I know that the lesson was in the incubator with branches, and we've pushed it a little bit further to include pull requests. And then I heard apparently there were some discussions whether or not pull requests should be included. But for us, if we want someone, as an RSE team, to work with us, it makes the most sense if at least they can understand pull requests, because that means we can get them on board with Git. So I was wondering, when is this going to be discussed or coming up for discussion, or isn't it? Because
So
that is
there is, one of my questions is, what do you want to see?
all right.
So if there is something in the incubator, but, you know, ping us. You can email us, ask us to discuss it. We can have a community discussion with the community, say, do you want this? We know there's a need for an intermediate Git lesson. We've spoken about it in our meeting. And kind of what exactly is there, we're not sure, but we've kind of certainly looked at a bunch of things in the incubator and a bunch of things in the lab and gone, kind of, we know there's a need for this and people want it. So we're kind of happy to kind of talk to people about pushing things through the various levels. But if that's something where you kind of, if you think there's a debate in the community, then let's open it up to the community for a community discussion, to an instructor discussion.
Okay. So, and it was something similar with the Python lesson. We actually merged what we liked the structure of the Gapminder one, but we didn't like the data set of the other one, because people just didn't seem to know what it was about. Neither the instructors nor
Was
the
that the
learners.
ice?
The inflammation, yeah, the inflammation one. We couldn't quite, what on earth are they trying to show, you know, so we were as confused as the learners. It's no use we're confused, and the learners, we can't explain to the learners.
Yeah, but it's around kind of arthritis and literally joint inflammation.
Yeah. But so we like the structure of the inflammation set lesson, but not the data set. And we like the data set of
Gapminder, but not the lesson.
It was using pandas. So we've done a merge there. So I was wondering also if there's not an option, even if it's a third optional lesson or something. But yeah.
You're going to have an opportunity to write it down. So these things hold fire for a few minutes, because you can have the opportunity to write it on a piece of paper that I can take back and discuss.
Okay, question. What do you need help most with? What are your bottlenecks as a governance committee? What kind of efforts do you need or
So
help from
at the
community?
moment, it's talking to the community and finding out what the community needs from us and how you want to communicate with us and how we want to work together to progress curricula, which is kind of what my questions are all going to be about in a minute. But it's very much that. It's just that we've got to a point where we're set up as a committee and we're thinking about the stuff that we think you need. And now we're reaching out and going there, okay, well, how do you want to talk to us? How do we make this work as a community endeavour?
Might be a topic for discussion later or out of scope, but I was wondering around how different teams sort of adapt the lessons. One, do the carpentries have any interest in like the different versions? Is there a record of what is being adapted into what? And it's like kind of, again, a more internal problem / just like a difference where it's like, say, Manchester, for example, uses some of the carpentry's lessons as is. Some lessons we have adapted that we're like, okay, we want this change. But then sometimes it's like the development goes in two directions where the carpentry's lessons are being developed. We are doing our internal development, and sometimes it's like, oh, we want to merge something, which somewhat gets complicated. So like, for example, the intermediate Python course, Manchester's version has a lot of the same content, but we kind of turned it upside down completely, where how we're approaching the things in that, I think that's a 1-week course, was changed a lot. And then we were making material changes this year. And then there were updates from the main lesson that we wanted to include. So it was a little complex, and that was, again, sort of a problem created by ourselves. But it's like, yeah, do we see any solution around it or anything like to have a track of, say, the different versions people might be interested in as well? Because I also remember this in the particle physics community. They do something similar where they use some of the carpentry's lessons, some they adapt according to what they need and being domain specific, but it's like very wide, I guess.
I'm going to pass this on to Toby. Do you want to pass the mic to Toby? Because I think this falls into your remit and not mine.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I would really love to see people who, first of all, it is great and appropriate that people adapt what is in those kind of central, like core lessons. And one of the things that makes you effective at teaching this stuff to people is being responsive to the audience that you're actually teaching to and understanding their motivations and so on, right? So this is a very cool thing to do. Where you have made an improvement that you think would apply to the central one, please make pull requests back to add those in. But, you know, the incubator was set up to try to collect together these like meaningfully different versions of lessons, or just lessons on completely different topics that people are making as well. And so like there's the version of the Git lesson that's in the incubator that teaches branching and pull requests and stuff. That's one that Sarah Stevens put in years ago. That's an extension of the standard software carpentry lesson, right? That's a great example of something that is helpful to have in the incubator for people to find. But I think that aside from that, what you can do is open a pull request to the software carpentry lesson. Let's say if you're adapting a software carpentry lesson to the, like, I don't know, instructor notes page maybe, and put a link at the top of that, like, are you planning to teach this audience for this lesson? Because if so, then there's this other version that's out there. And I think that's like, I think that would be great to see starting to build up those kinds of lists in the instructor notes pages. But beyond that, I don't think the carpentries is likely to try to implement something that automatically keeps track of this stuff. Like fundamentally, we're relying on the community to tell each other about these efforts where they exist. And things like GitHub, the list of forks and stuff can help with this a bit, but fundamentally we need you all to tell people about this stuff when it exists. There's a
And
hand
when
on
you
the
run
Zoom.
a version of it, it's suggested that you let the carpentries know that you're doing a carpentry flavour workshop as well. So there is a form for that.
Also, just to prevent duplication of effort.
Yep. Yeah, Warwick, I will ask to unmute. There you go. I don't know if I can unmute you.
Okay, yes, you
There
have.
you go.
Does that work? Am I deafeningly loud or anything?
Yes, you are very loud. Yes, I'm right in front of the speakers.
Hold
So-
on, I can speak more more quietly. Is that better? I know it changes my tone.
Oh,
I
just
will.
normally is fine.
Normally it's okay. Okay. Yeah. So I wanted to respond to that point because I think of myself as quite an adherent to the carpentries, and I think it's a really fascinating exercise. But I think so. We all have our own opinions about the details of exactly how the courses need to be delivered. And I think the reason the carpentry survives and works so well is possibly because we then just put our own spins on things. So like we teach from the core material for the Python course, for example, but I teach it in a different order. So I don't prepare a new repository. I just link to the main one and I just link to it a different order and I explain to the students why. And then as Toby said, sometimes during the course you find by the end of the session, they actually want other things. So you think, I'll skip a bit, we'll do this first or whatever. The things where there are, objective improvements that can be made to things, like there's a really well-motivated case for something that's not working. I agree, those are the places where the pull request should come in. But having this kind of ecosystem of various levels of things. So I look at the incubator and think, at first I thought, we should tidy this all up. We'll have this amazing gleaming set of courses. But I read a book by I think Peter Hinkins is how I pronounce his name, called Social Architecture, and talking about how some of the most survivable projects are the ones where people can just walk and create chaos in the background, and the core survives, and what works makes its way into the core, and what doesn't eventually, in essence, shrivels and dies, right? So the most robust gardens are the ones that are a bit wild, and in where it's an actual strength of the community. And you want to keep the burden on the kind of core team and the maintainers as low as possible. So I don't know what that boils down to. I think basically agreeing with Toby that if they're core objective things, maybe those can become the ones that are pull requests. But then having an ecosystem around those is absolutely fine.
Cool. Back to Toby quickly.
Yeah, just to respond to that quickly. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think one of the alarming things that I come across sometimes, like in the community, particularly with instructors who are kind of first starting out, is that there's this sense sometimes that they think that because things are written in that way in the central curriculum, that we are saying you have to teach it like this, and if you don't, then you're not being a carpentries instructor. And it's the exact opposite. In fact, I really want people to go do the instructor training and then develop their own way that works for them and trust their judgment in that. And if you've got any ideas for how I can try to communicate to that to people through the curriculum, then I'd love to hear from you. But I think perhaps now is not the time to continue that particular thread of discussion. Catch me in the break afterwards, or send me an email or whatever else.
Yeah, so we're going to move on to the World Cafe. So there are... okay. There are three kind of themes of questions. There's questions around the communication. So how would you like to engage with the Lesson Programmes Governance Committee? And what do you think could work better in how we work with the community? So if you're a maintainer, what could work better in terms of support for you? There's a thing around strategy. So this is why I'm thinking about the lesson and the lesson curricula. So what's currently working really well? What could be improved? So it could be on how we consider new things could be improved. And what would you like to see kind of come through? So what do you think's missing potentially from the curriculum as is? Or you think there's really good candidates for stuff that maybe we've missed? Are there things that maybe should be in the incubator that aren't in the incubator? For instance, like topics that we're not just currently aware of. In terms of advocacy, are there things that just could generally work better for you as a community with carpentry? So we have this feedback. and anything you would like that you think should be a community discussion or you think we should set up a working group about. Okay, so those are what I've got as question primers. I have 3 boards. I have a communication board, a strategy board, and an advocacy board. In the interest of time, we're going to have 10 minutes on each one. I also have a anything else set of sheets. So I'm going to put 3 flip charts around the room. You will go to one of the 3 to start with. And after 10 minutes, I will say change and go to the next flip chart. And I will attach the anything else to a wall. Okay? If you are online, if you go to Slack, there is a Padlet. Okay? It has 3 columns, communication, strategy, and advocacy. And each question is there as a note. So you can just click the plus and add a new note, and you should be able to drag it under the relevant question. Okay? I'm going to open you up a breakout room, the people that are online. So if you go into the breakout room, you can discuss amongst yourselves. And I'm going to trust you to self-time your 10 minutes on each topic. But I'm going to set the breakout room to close out after 30 minutes. Okay? So at 3 o'clock, we're going to come back. I'm going to ask each group to summarise what are on their sheets of paper. Okay? Just so you know, you're going to have to do some public speaking. Yeah? Pre-warned. Because we need to be back in the main room for 3:20, I think, was the thing that Dave sent in a message. So we're slightly shorter than I thought. So, Debs, could you do me a favour and just put the 3 flip charts anywhere in the room? I will give you some pens in a second. I'm going to open the breakout room. So, stand, get energised, and let's chat. So, I just want to open one room.
Recreate bottom and middle.
Huh?
Oh yeah, you could just assign them all to one room.
I can just assign them all to one room, yeah. I think it's just Camilla and Warwick. There we go, open all rooms, they're assigned to a room. I should do. Now we try and get that out of the way. Yeah, 10 minutes per topic. Because we're running slightly behind what I thought we'd run. So we've gone from 15 to 10. Okay, so there are 3 flip charts. I will give you some pens. Please find the flip chart you would like first. If some people would like to come and grab pens. I don't have many. Yeah, I'd rather not throw them. That, you know, I used to be a health and safety rep. And the... I don't have any more pens, but please share the pens amongst you. And this is the anything else. Okay, so if nothing fits...
Where do you want to go?
Oh, I can just stick it on the wall. No, so the few pens we have... Right, has every group managed to get a pen? Have we shared pens? Fab, okay. Go, you're down to about... Yeah. Please also grab water if you need some. Okay, so we're going to go to 43 minutes past for this one. You have 8 minutes.
I think I'm just going to step out of the way. I don't want to make people feel like they can't write down what they really think.
Yeah, if you lift the sheets, there are multiple questions. FYI. Demetrius, you have multiple questions. Each group has multiple questions. If you lift the paper... No, 10 minutes for all of the questions. So take the sheets off, read all the questions, because you have multiple questions, not just the one. So some of you have 2, some of you have 3. and you have 7 minutes. And then you are rotating around. Where you just let it happen. Oh, this is where you just let. And then I'll look at it all later and come up with something. Right, you have 2 minutes left on your current theme. got 1 minute. If you looked at how many questions you've got and answered all of them. Fabulous. If there's anything you can think of that I may not have asked you, there isn't anything else sheet. Right. Those of you in the room, move to another Padlet with questions. Those of you online, move to the next.
You know what you mean?
Yeah, you go to the flip chart, they move to the next column in the Padlet. Yeah. Right, move, rotate. That is a good point. That is a good point. Yeah, they're just moving along the Padlet.
Is that why you wear the masks?
Not better?
Yes, exactly. Alright, so November is we're going to go live on the...
November or January. Either way, we've got to be done by November.
And then we got like a bit of a... something like a night on the computer.
On the board.
Yeah, board. I can't remember if it's safe or when it's going to be.
It's been a long time coming.
Oh, it's all right. We're nagging Toby in every meeting because we wanted to make accessibility changes to the software carpentry page and we couldn't because of the, yeah.
It's going to happen, potentially. Finally get there. It's been a hell of a journey.
Yeah. And move on to your final topic. Rotate. Okay, so you'll have 10 minutes. And then if there is anything that you think I have missed, once you've seen all three boards, there is the sheet by Debs that says anything else. But you will need to take a pen.
Tries to help people who haven't done any kind of computational stuff before understand how best to,
If I've missed a question, add your own and answer it.
in a way that helps you implement a solution with a computer. So, like, identifying what the easiest you know, when you write scripts, I can remember when I was learning to type, one of the big challenges for me was breaking down what I knew I needed to do. So, I'll have to go back and talk to the other folks in the team, figure out what we can do in terms of sort of lesson planning training. But we should also think about how we try to engage the folks in the community, this idea of trying to think about something like this. The thing that I'm really not sure about is, I don't know that it's going to fit with any of the existing, like, carpentry, the existing lesson plans. I don't know where it fits in with those. But, well, I mean, the place that I always start is like, find out how many people like the idea and care about it enough to, like, create the thing. And if the thing exists and has a strong, like, engaged community around it, then it becomes something that is worth us investing more in.
I know one group has 3 questions, so just check that everything on your sheet has been answered. Right, you have 5 more minutes. There is a anything else board, so if there is something burning that you don't think I've asked you, or you've now had the opportunity to share, please make sure it goes on the other bit. Yeah. I mean, there's multiple sheets of paper. They can write on the back as well and on an extra sheet. Right, you can write on a second sheet and put 1 and 2 on them and things and, you know, on the back. But there are multiple sheets for a reason.
Should we move out of the way of the anything else? I don't want to be like putting people off.
Be as savage as you like, yo.
You're going to do some expectation management of this about,
Yeah.
about our capacity to make all the shiny new things that everyone's going to want.
Yeah. I mean, some of this we've already spoken about anyway. Right, 3 minutes. Right, if you have run out of things to write, think about how you're going to summarize everything that is on your sheets of paper. Because I will be asked... Yeah, the one that you're on is what I'm going to be asking your group to summarize. In approximately 3 minutes. Okay, so if you can start wrapping up your discussion, if you can decide who's going to give the feedback. And I'm just going to wait for our online person to come back from the breakout room. Oh, we have an extra. Right, welcome back, Warwick. Oop, hello. Okay, so we are... Right, thank you. I'm going to ask each group to feedback. Warwick, would you like to, I'm going to share the Padlet. Would you like to feedback first, and then I'll ask the people in the room?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was on my own, which is all right. So it's fine. It's probably the most peaceful, thoughtful 25 minutes I've had in some time. Yeah. So I was having a think through, trying to remember what was under the themes, and then some thoughts about things that are or aren't working well, and some of the things that sprung. As far as communication goes, I mean, this is just how I like to communicate. And Slack works pretty well for me. There are always too many channels. There are always too many workspaces, but the Carpentries is one of the best behaved. And then I thought it's always useful to have some channel that you can publicize from, right? So if something comes up and they say, oh no, here's the thing that we're working on, that can be broadcast. We can then broadcast to whoever's in our little niche, you know, the researchers and former colleagues and whoever else. The things I've said for working better under communication is, the relationship with other projects. So this is in the sense of things like Code Refinery and stuff. It's a question that occasionally comes up. People say, like, well, why should I choose this over another? And I think we do acknowledge that they're there, and we know, and it's fine. It's not that there's any tension of the coexistence, but to outsiders, I think it's sometimes a bit unclear. Something that we've also come across is we have surveys where we try to ask around the researchers which courses they would be interested in taking. And we say, oh, have a look at the list on the incubators. And then they'll put something down, and it'll turn out it's something that hasn't been maintained in 3 or 4 years and is kind of wildly out of date and would take quite a lot of effort on our part, more time than we have in the RSC team, to bring back up to speed. It's something we would like to do. We'd like to bring it back up to speed. We'd like to contribute back, but we just have finite time like everyone else. Things aren't working well. I think the instructor training is great, and some of my colleagues who've recently gone along also think it's great. I still maintain that the first half day should be taken by every teacher and university lecturer, and the world would benefit quite tremendously, but that's me. Workbench, I think, is great as well. Even as a not R user, I remember being able to set it up and create, nice looking page with good infrastructure very easily, and with clear instructions. One of the improvements for strategy, I think, is, some people can come from outside, they want to help, and you arrive at the GitHub page for a particular course, and it's not really clear what does need doing. So one that springs to mind is sometimes I come across a course where it hasn't moved to the workbench yet. So I think, maybe I could sink a couple of hours this weekend into helping, but it's not clear what would kind of come of that. It hasn't been identified as an issue already or anything like that. And I think that possibly goes down to the maintainers as well. It's not clear how well maintained things are, because the cadence it feels like slower than your average open source code project. And that's absolutely fine. Carpentry's course doesn't necessarily need several updates a week versus once every couple of months, but it becomes unclear what is worth doing in terms of contributing. I didn't immediately think of anything could be done better in terms of advocacy. And one of the final thing I put there is something that does come up, is that a lot of our instructors aren't sure about maintaining their instructorship. There's I'll call it a threat, which is a bit harsh, of teaching at least 2 courses every 2 years, I think it was when I did my instructor training. And how that gets recorded seems to be by setting up a boilerplate web page, which someone described as an incredibly complicated way of filling out a form. And I wonder if that can be streamlined, because people are more likely to do it if they see it as less onerous. When you're reasonably adept at Git and deploying things and stuff, it's not that difficult, I don't think. But it's enough of a barrier that people don't do it, and they say, oh, well, maybe they'll say I'm not a Carpentries instructor in 2 years, and that'll be that. So yeah.
Thank you. Actually, I've lost count the number of times I've actually broken the course page, because, yeah. Okay, who would like to feedback first in the room? You still have nominated a person? Can you pass it up and then we'll pass it along? Okay, so what is the topic? It should be written on one of the sheets. And what are the general themes?
So the topic is advocacy. And the 2 questions were, are there things that could work better? And anything you would like to discuss or to set up a working group about.
Yeah.
I'll start with other things that could work better. One of the things we thought of was social media. Now, carpentries have a very active LinkedIn and a very active Mastodon, and I love Mastodon, but pragmatically, I'm not convinced that's where most of your audience is. So I wonder if that could be a little better. Somebody mentioned that the Open Science Wall was amazing, and could we take that on tour? Could we do more with that? Carpentry's champions, I think this feeds back to something I've noticed a lot in that if something is everyone's problem, it's nobody's problem, and maybe some champions could be some kind of champion system could be set up there. Physical media to distribute, or the online availability of media that could be printed off. One of the groups wrote funding seeker. Not 100% sure what they meant by that, but maybe somebody can shout out later when they get the microphone. We also thought about membership engagement. It wasn't clear to some of us if an institution or a group is a member, how do they engage better? Or maybe just like information on that. And then for things that we'd like discussed or set up, somebody wrote accessibility, make sure there's a good like accessibility in terms of like disabilities and like that kind of thing.
And we've hounded Toby too many times about the website and fixing the colours on the software carpentry one, so yes.
Very good, very good. Things like membership stats sharing and testimonials, so kind of like feedback and making sure the feedback is available. Graphic designers would be good, apparently. Not sure who wrote that. I'm not sure. Oh, yes, so that like people can get diagrams done for courses and that kind of thing, maybe. Recruitment and outreach of maintainers, which is probably something you've already had a lot of to do. Resource coordinator, somebody wrote, and again, I'm not 100% sure, so maybe when somebody gets the microphone, they can expand. Cheat sheets is something that was potentially a good idea, so that you can kind of have the courses, but you also have like little summaries of the courses and that kind of thing, maybe. Making it easy for instructors to feedback to the higher level organisations. And then finally, this may be what Funding Seeker was, but those of us who can help fundraise, how do we do it, and do we have a working group to join?
Cool, thank you. Right, can we, Toby, do you want to, can someone run the mic to Toby? This is when only having the one mic.
Run the Toby to the mic. Hi, could you expand on what you mean by physical media? Please.
So leaflets and flyers, a conference ad pack, stickers, swag, that kind of thing, I think was the idea.
Okay. Yeah, and then that segues then onto your group's feedback.
Yeah, so I think that touches a little bit on what we meant by resource coordinator, because as well as the like physical advertising media, like I know there's been some work done here and there to do sort of offline carpentries, for example, for areas that may not have such good
We're
internet
all pointing at you,
connection, for example. So, yeah. So I think that's really great, and that also ties in with the funding seeker bit that we put, because obviously that needs some money to support buying stuff and sending it to places, and some sort of GitHub sponsorship thing, non-focused light sort of aspect, whether that sort of thing could help, or looking into it could help.
Okay.
What we meant. I'll pass you to Brad.
Okay, so Brad, the topic.
So the topic is community, and the first question was, how would you like to engage with the LPGC? The first couple of questions are, we're noobs, we don't know. But maybe have a quick guide with how to engage with the LPGC. Just something, hey, if you're looking to get involved and you want to communicate, here's how we do so. One of the, and then, kind of posting that, what do the communications look like? Refreshing the Carpentry's website for better referencing, so that kind of ties in with something that was already asked.
Ongoing project.
Yeah. A quarterly open forum, so hold an open session where, hey, if you're interested, come talk to us. Aggregating data from Amy. I don't know who Amy is, but
Oh,
apparently.
it's the database where you record your training for various things as an instructor or a trainer, and where it logs what training you've delivered for the carpentries.
Got it.
She's a real person too.
Yeah. And then maybe an instructor ambassador, or a point of contact for instructors to kind of ask questions if they're about to provide a training course, or give feedback once they've completed such course. So that covers and encourage self-organized workshops to self-report. And lastly, is there a vision or a roadmap that is provided?
Kind of part of this is to develop such a roadmap. That's kind of why we want to talk to the community. So we have an idea. We would like, at least an additional curricula. We're thinking there should probably be an intermediate one. But what that is and what that looks like is not for the committee to decide. It's for the community, but in negotiation with Toby, because Toby is the curriculum manager.
Did you want me to do the next question?
Yeah.
Or you can answer if you want. But all right. And then the second question was, what could work better? The first comment was, it can feel intimidating. Again, is there a high-level roadmap? Feels like there's a lot going on. Is there guidance for what to start contributing and how? And then something to ensure that discussions and PRs are moved forward in a timely manner. Is there somebody to help kind of manage the incoming content? Is a flow chart of lessons. So like for instructors, like how is this supposed to flow? Or for contributors, like what does the process look like for contributing content? Like where do I start? Who makes decisions? Where do I? Yeah.
Cool.
And then kind of a dependency graph of lesson prerequisites. So my inclination is that this was something along the lines of for students, making clear for students what are prerequisites before attending a course. So like, what should you know before you start this?
Nothing. Apart from how to switch on your machine. True.
But I think that covers it.
Cool. Toby, did you want to? We don't have time. Okay, cool. Right, very quickly, because we have like a minute and a half, and then I think we're supposed to be back in the hall for 20 past.
Yeah, the metadata thing was also like if there were other courses that people could then follow afterwards, or maybe the intermediate Python one required the beginner one, that could be captured using metadata in the YAML or whatever it is file that's part of the workbench, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what is working well? Incubator, we love the incubator. We love that it's a researcher friendly, and the content is very focused on why we're doing stuff. We like that the carpentry is very open infrastructure, great for adapting and reusing. We put responding really well to the community input and suggestions, great session today. And that it's a global reach, we put inclusivity, open, etc., 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 love heart.
And you've got a very big shopping list by the look of it. Okay.
What could be improved? The toast video in the collaborative lesson development training, if it isn't already there. Some of you went to the toolkit thing yesterday where that was. Attracting more devs, maintainers, maybe a list of what needs work or help, just online, publicly available. Finding info on the websites can be hard. Which one do you go to? Software carpentries or carpentries?
Yeah.
What's on which one? If you're applying for funding, go to the carpentries, but is there information that you can just use, or do you have to go and talk to somebody before then? So maybe some guidance, some success stories, what's the policy? And then there's an extra question which says, what would you like to see developed? Fortran, yay. I didn't put that one, don't blame me. C++, some bits maybe for HPC carpentry. And there's a comment here that says Manchester is incubating adapted intermediate courses that people might like to look at. I've run out of steam, I'm sorry.
So thank you. I will qualify expectation, the fact that like, you know, there were like 3 of us in the committee. And if any of this is going to happen, it's going to be you making it happen. So this is your shopping list for yourselves.
And the people that aren't in this room, you.
Yes. Not literally you. I meant you as in the community, the big thing. We need to skedaddle back to the main hall, I'm afraid. I will write some of this up and I will share it as a blog post. Thank you for your input.